Hey, good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Business Basics. My special guest today, Angela, who is the new owner, relatively new owner of the Highlander in Iowa City. And we had a chance to visit before we started our program today. And Angela, the underlying theme is perseverance. Now, let's go back a step. Tell us again, how did you get into this whole, I want to own a hotel business?
Well, I think I like to tell about my one giant colossal failure because, especially in business, you really do learn more in your failures than you do in your successes. And
Yes,
so in the
so true.
crash of '08, I crashed and burned big. I had 3 restaurants at the time and 5 summer camp locations. And my bank was the first bank in Iowa to have the doors locked by the FDIC. So go out and try and get a new loan with a new lender in 2008. It's not
Yeah.
going to happen. So, so then I decided, my son was little at the time, and I decided that I needed maybe a break from Mr. Toad's wild ride of entrepreneurship. And so I decided to reinvent myself as something that I liked to do as a volunteer, which was community development. So I took so I'd served on boards and that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And so I took the job in Grinnell at the Chamber of Commerce, running the Chamber, the CDB, and community development. And that is that my first marching orders in that first board meeting, and I'd never worked at a nonprofit, that was an experience, but hey, we need an event center. And by this time I was a very, quite seasoned entrepreneur, and I can figure this out,
Right.
that we needed an event center. And then I quickly figured out, well, we need a hotel. So it's kind of embarrassing to say, but it took from concept to opening, it took 7 years.
Wow.
So it's a little embarrassing, but their luxury hotels don't pencil out on their own in
No.
small towns, especially at 10,000 people in
Right.
a fairly rural city, even though it wrestles above its weight in arts and culture and a lot of things in education, um, but it
So
just doesn't pencil out.
how did you jump into that, Angela? How did you, a luxury hotel, and not a whole lot of prior experience in running a hotel before, what
Mhm.
kind of research projects did you go through to kind of formulate what you wanted?
Oh, that's a good story. I visited every hotel I could find that was in smaller communities. I also went to every single city in Iowa that was about under 20,000 to talk to them about their event center and how they did it and how did they get that to work in such a small place. So, and I was looking at your questions, and that is one thing that I really learned in my most biggest failure. And you asked the question about what is the biggest advice or what have you learned?
Yeah.
And I really learned after that giant tank to get people involved that are smarter than me and ask for help. And
Hmm.
if you're because that's really how I made the leap from kind of being a more of a one-hit wonder, and then moving on to really growing formidable business with scale is getting really smart people a lot smarter than me in a lot of different areas. I have my own expertise, but in development and event centers, and I really my thing is in operations and marketing.
Hmm.
So finance, development, those kind of things, construction. I mean, I really looked to experts for a lot of help. So.
Right. Okay, massive failure, 2008. Most people, Angela, would say, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to go work for somebody else the rest of my life. I'm throwing in the cards. Not you, right? You were ready to get back in that next big thing. How do you define that? What is it that drives you to do that?
Well, my mentors over time, in the last decade, and I have some tremendous, like I said, people smarter than me, mentors. I wish that it was money, because I probably would would have made over my lifetime different decisions that would get those businesses to be more fortuitous earlier. But it really is building something out of nothing. I mean, it really is, you know, I mean, it's a coin the phrase, leave it better than you found it, but
Right.
just that is what drives me. I mean, and it's really community focused with me. It's really important to me to be good stewards of community, whatever community you find yourself or feel yourself in. And that is what has been the driver, because for example, the city in Grinnell, it didn't have an accommodations product that really celebrated where it was in the world, and also that it really almost deserved. That kind of makes me a little teary, but and the building also, it felt like, man, that she's been 90% vacant for 40 years. And the only options after that much time, or put it in the landfill, and there are not enough holes in the earth to hold all of these old buildings, or reinvent it and figure out a great use. And I remember walking through this old school, 100-year-old school, and just it dawning on me, oh my gosh, the old school janitor closets, those are perfectly placed for maid closets, or housekeeping closets. So it was just, so it's a combination of that. And at the Highlander, it was, and I think I told you, once I had the hotel in Grinnell open, I started looking immediately for my next hotel, because hotels need scale, and they run better if you've got some scale to really take service to another level.
Yes.
So that is what I really started looking for my next project, and I vetted really thoroughly 4 different project opportunities before I found Highlander. And it came, all kinds of things come across your desk for sale and that sort of thing. And I saw it on the picture, and I'm like, what is that hotel doing with those giant windows? Something's going on there. So I went, I contacted the real estate, the broker, said, hey, I want to look at that place. And then I looked at it, and I just immediately was like, oh, I can do something else.
Yes.
Because somehow the spirit of the old girl was still there.
Yeah.
And those giant windows and these rooms that surround the pool. I mean, you could just see Don Draper on Mad Men smoking a cigarette on the second floor balcony overlooking the pool. I mean, it just had this vibe. And even though it was really, really distressed, I mean, really distressed, it was still open, but it was unbelievably distressed. But it just, I was like, oh, this place, this building deserves to come back. And there is no hotel in Iowa City that really celebrates Iowa City's vibe. I mean, it's got really great accommodations products, frankly, with all of these great, great chains. I'm not a chain person, but it's got a lot of really good hotels, but none that make you feel like you get up in the morning and say, oh, I'm at the hippie hotel in Iowa City. And it just, so the combination of this fantastic, one of the greatest cities in the world, in my opinion, this city doesn't have a hotel that celebrates where it is, or that really gets to the kind of brings the vibe to life in a hotel product. And this building and this legacy deserves to come back.
Oh
So
yeah. I mean, it's been 30 years, Angela, since the Highlander was really the Highlander. I mean, it's back in
yeah,
back in the 80s.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
when it had that feel to it. You know, the 70s and 80s
yeah,
were kind of the heyday for the
yes,
Highlander.
big time. And you can really see that some hotels, some uh, buildings, or something about the ethos, they
Hmm.
after that 80s heyday, it went through 7 chains, 7 flags, and it just needs to be
Right.
an independent. It
Oh
was
yeah.
started as that, and it's just funky and weird, and it just kind of didn't. They tried to make it fit into that cookie cutter
Right.
vibe, and
No.
it didn't go, or
No.
didn't do well. So, but I mean, Iowa City is a hot market, and it really survived all those years because the market is just so strong with all the athletics and the arts and
Hmm.
culture and the medical. So there's a lot of diverse demand drivers that made that thing pencil out, even in its highly distressed, like ranked dead last on
Right.
TripAdvisor. So
Well, and and Angela, you didn't just go in and just change the paint color on the wall. You did a major upfit and remodel for that place.
I did.
It's
Yes.
gorgeous. I mean, the pool
We
area alone is gorgeous.
Yeah. And there were some things like the that pool area in the 70s, or when it was built, it had this basically a window wall. The whole entire window, or the
Right.
whole entire wall was a window. And then over time, as codes changed and windows broke, the windows got smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's a picture somewhere. And seriously, this giant wall of windows was then reduced to like I think it was 5 windows, and they were like seriously like 4 by 6.
Yeah.
And that was, I mean, when I walked in there the first time, I'm like, and I looked through those windows and the duct tape and all, and I was like, wait a minute, there's this giant courtyard out there. Let's
Yeah.
connect these spaces, open it up so that you can go back and forth and sit on your own patio out there, and the kids are running and swimming. I mean, it's a just a cool thing.
It is. And I think with your remodel, you've maybe even made it feel more Highlander-like than it was when it first started.
I think so.
With the appointments that you put into it and the special touches that you've ran throughout the whole hotel, it just has such an inviting, welcoming feel to it. It's somewhat eclectic, perhaps, but I love
Yes.
it. It's artistic, right?
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about this? So the Grinnell Hotel really felt like a historic revival.
Hmm.
Um, but somehow the Highlander has felt like this sort of ethos, kind of that um, reimagining the era, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
So it really is. Oh, I know what I was going to say. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. So this was like a historic. This feels like a really modern take on a historic building in Grinnell, which I'm
Hmm.
sitting in right now. Um, but the Highlander feels like a craft cocktail.
It does. You're
Right?
right.
I mean,
It
yeah, it's
does.
like it's a craft beer, it's a craft cocktail, it's a craft
I
hotel.
love that analogy.
And the Hotel Grinnell feels like a really great vintage glass of wine. This is just very
Yes.
different. So
Yes, it is.
yeah.
How
So
appropriate. That's a great, because when you were saying Don Draper, I'm like, yeah, and he's got an old fashioned in his hand with a hand shaved ice ball in the glass, and that's exactly the feel that the Highlander
yeah, it's a
has.
craft cocktail.
Yeah.
And because people, this notion of boutique hotel, it is, both hotels are definitely quintessentially boutique. But I think you need to get that next adjective in there.
Right.
That next modifier that really, it's a craft hotel.
It
Like you
is.
said, it's eclectic, it's sort of interesting, and it's just um, every time, because I go back and I spend half my time in Grinnell and half my time in Iowa City, between the two hotels, and both, when I get there, every time they take my breath away, but for
Hmm.
very different reasons,
Right,
you
right.
know? And the Highlander is just like this relaxed. I mean, the music is the 70s, all the
Yes.
greatest hits from 70s,
Right, right.
and and in Grinnell, it's more of, you know, acoustic alternative. I mean, even the sound you get is
Yes.
just, you get it as soon as you walk in the door.
And the thing I like about the Highlander, Angela, is that, and I've stayed at those boutique motels, hotels in downtown New York,
Yeah.
like the Hoxton and things like that. I've
Yes.
been
Love.
there. It's a great place, right? But the space with the Highlander is it has that boutique hotel feel, but enough room for large groups.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. I was
bring in
saying,
everybody.
if you could I debunk a rumor? Someone said to me the other day, "Oh, everyone's talking about the Highlander and it's packed, so I don't want to go during a pandemic." And I said, "I had 3 people there last night. It's not packed. And I
Right.
have 65,000 square feet. So each of those people could have 20,000 square feet to themselves."
That's more
So
than 6 foot social distancing.
yeah, yeah. So it's definitely a giant place. And most boutique hotels don't have the largest swimming pool, the
Right.
largest hotel swimming pool in the city. The pool is ginormous.
Yeah, it is. It's
Most
beautiful.
boutique hotels don't have those resort amenities, and that's why it's just such a cool place, because it's this urban resort,
Hmm.
but this craft cocktail of a kind of a thing. So it, the urban resort is definitely where it's heading, where I'm seeing guests gravitate to, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, and the location of the Highlander, as it always has been, is genius because you're right off the interstate. So for those passing travelers, but you're also close enough to downtown Iowa City. You're a 5-minute drive to downtown
Right.
Iowa City,
Yeah.
or
And
an
there's
Uber or something.
Yeah, and
Easy to get to.
there's giant parking and parking. That is another thing that typically boutique hotels many times are downtown, and this one is definitely on the interstate, which is kind of odd. I'm a really downtown person, so I love downtown, but this hotel really was worth saving,
Yeah.
and bringing back its legacy of those original owners who just saw it too. I
And I'm
mean,
so glad you did. I'm so glad you did because
me
it is.
too.
It's a beautiful landmark for Iowa City, and
Yes.
the decline was heartbreaking.
And I put it under contract a year ago, July, having no idea that it had what it was.
Mhm.
I told my husband, "Oh, I put this hotel under contract. It's like this really weird 70s hotel, but it's got these giant windows and this epic pool. I can do something with this." And then it was a couple of weeks later, I'm like, he's like, "What's the name of that place?" I said, "It's the Highlander." He's like, "The Highlander?" I'm not from Iowa. So he's like, "Oh my God, my parents loaded us up in the station wagon. That's where we went for our big family, staycation type thing." And
Yes,
then as I did my due diligence, and I'm like, what in the world? This is like this interstate hotel is like Iowa City's iconic hotel.
it
What?
is.
So
It is.
that's why I went down the road so long with, "Oh, we got to name it the Bohemian because it really feels like Iowa City." But then when you get to Iowa City, you're like, "Oh no, that is the Highlander," and that brand equity and that iconic thing that everyone associates with is is bigger than big. And what I was finding is, so I stayed open. I kept half of the hotel open in its very distressed state, and half of it was under renovation. And so many people were staying and having their family reunions there.
Hmm.
And I'm like, why? I mean, people that you probably wouldn't normally stay at a $59 highly distressed hotel. But the vibe was still alive and well.
Right.
And they felt it, and they didn't care
Right.
that she wasn't what she used to be.
Right.
But they kept coming. So that it had to go back to the Highlander. And I just talked to the daughter of the original owner the other day, actually by email, and she was just over the moon that we went back to the Highlander. And I told her, it makes me choke up. I said, I need you to know that your family's legacy is important to me.
Oh yeah.
And I want to do you proud.
Wow.
And she, you know,
Wow. Yeah.
it's important to me.
It is. Yeah, that's great. And she has to be over the moon because she put so much of her sweat and blood into that place when she had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They really did. Because I knew them from a long time ago, Angela, back in the 80s. When it was kind of funny because after it changed hands so many times, it's like, so what's the Highlander called now? Because there's still a Highlander, right?
Right. Yeah. In all of those years, I mean, my goodness, it was Ramada and Best Western and Quality something and Clarion. It was, it needed to be an independent. And once we get through this pandemic, it's going to do really well.
It is. Now, are you going to bring back the full kitchen like it had before? Is that the plan? Is that on the books to do that? Okay.
Yep, it's already done and waiting.
Okay.
We have a few minor touch-ups, but oh man, that was a big mess.
Yeah.
So yes, and it's got a kitchen that you could feed. It's ginormous kitchen. So I also have thoughts about how to share that kitchen with some entrepreneurs that might need space. It's just so big. I mean, back in the day, if you had a 450 seat ballroom, you needed that kind of space because you have 100 people serving that kind of. But now with all of the equipment and technology, you need a lot smaller space. So I have 3 kitchens in that hotel.
Well, so that might be a cooking class for your chef during weekdays. When volume is down, not weekends or evenings, but that's
it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, we could do a 450 person wedding out of that kitchen tomorrow. It's now clean and has new equipment and it's beautiful. And
and social distancing, not a problem at the Highlander. I mean, there's plenty of open spaces for people to still get together, but maintain their distance.
Yes.
The lobby just off of the front desk area, a beautiful space.
And especially the fresh air. Now that the pool has these giant garage doors that we have open, so the courtyard is huge and the pool is huge. And again, there's just a lot of room to spread out and do it safely. It's the staff and I have talked, knock on wood. I mean, we've been through a lot already together, and everyone's healthy and being very safe and careful, and we're masked up. And boy, I talked to a hotelier, friend of mine that has hotels in various states, and the states with that case counts have gone down and stayed down. His hotel there is at 30% occupancy, where it was at 5 2 months ago.
Wow.
The hotels that case counts are rising or staying high, he's still at 5, just like I am.
Wow.
So it's a big deal, and we need to mask up, and we need to get this under control, because until those case counts go down and stay down, consumer confidence isn't coming back. I could give out rooms for free, and people would be scared and uncertain, even though a hotel ranks very low on the risk continuum of this thing. If but anyway, unlike events, which and we have had so many events on the books, and they're all pushed back and back and back. So I think that our first events will actually start happening not till December. I hope. We'll see, because my goodness, we had weddings and reunions and conferences, conventions, and everything is pushed back or canceled in the case of some weddings that they felt they couldn't wait.
Yeah. So again, the list of the services, tell us. So you've got the big ballroom, hold a lot of people in that, lobby area, the pool area for cocktails by the pool or something.
Yeah.
What about other small meeting rooms, like groups and things?
Well, the ballroom can be divided. It has
Okay.
those, giant doors, so we can do that. And then there's another small meeting room. I think it seats maybe 50.
Yep.
But there's all kinds of nooks and crannies that we can figure out for small. But it's great to have these big spaces right now. I turned one of the meeting rooms into the coolest hotel fitness center ever,
Love
in
it.
my opinion. Yeah, so it's got giant sliding glass door windows. It's, natural light. So many hotel fitness centers are like in the basement or it's
Right,
like
right.
in a shoebox. No, this is big equipment spread out, everything at least 6 feet apart, if not more. So I'm really feeling good about that. And then we added sliding glass doors to the bar area, so that will be done soon with a patio there
Oh,
that'll
good.
go in and out to the bar, because we have a big neighborhood of workforce around there. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's like 1,000 workers, in just a few blocks. It's a
Just
lot
across
of
the
people.
street. You're right.
Yeah. And so eventually, when everyone comes back to work, I mean, a lot of them are already, but if you're in workforce, you're not going to want to go to the pool for an outdoor setting after work or for lunch. So that bar, I really anticipate that being kind of a nice neighborhood eatery and watering hole.
Good, good. I love it. And how many rooms altogether for like people staying overnight?
97.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
And
That, that's
we just opened the penthouse, which is, I would tell you, the best penthouse in Iowa. There's a few penthouses. There's one in Dubuque. There's one at another hotel in Des Moines. But this one, oh my goodness sakes,
love to see
you
it.
have to see it to
I
believe it.
yes.
It has a giant circular tub that looks like the biggest cereal bowl you've ever seen. And the tub is for two. You could probably put 4 or 5 in there, and the shower, it's really a sexy place.
That's
So
great.
I'm
That's
excited
fantastic.
to have people stay there too.
All right, Angela, one more question for you.
Yes.
What's your inspiration every day? What gets you out of bed? What motivates you every single day? What is it?
I should have thought of this, and
Well, you touched on so many. You persevere. I mean, through the '08 thing, you had a major crash, and yet you still are willing to get back out there again and take the risk, be a business owner, and I'm not talking small risks here, Angela. You're go big or go home, right?
I am.
So
Yeah.
something's inspiring you to do this every day.
I think it's that make something out of nothing
Yeah.
and surprise and delight. I mean, the things that inspire me are twofold. The guest, I mean, on a daily basis, I mean, just internally, I have this um, I'm just driven to do good
Yes.
things,
Right.
driven to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, as they say.
I
That
love it.
really is an internal driver. And I'm driven to do that with buildings, leave them better than you found it, but also with staff. I
Mhm.
really engage in every single person's professional development. I'm
Yes.
always thinking about, you know, wanting to be helpful in that way too, because
Right.
they're neat, so I'm really, but the thing that when I feel low, or because this is the hardest thing I've ever been through because of the duration of this
Hmm.
pandemic. I mean, the
Hmm.
fact that we're still open, I think is nothing short of a miracle after
Right.
6 months of
Yeah.
virtually no revenue.
Right.
And it is, I mean, you can't sleep. You can't, I mean, but you just, and two of those things during this dark time keep me going. And that is um, having that place for visitors to experience Iowa City and in Grinnell, having
Hmm.
that place where you get your first impressions of the city and how they react to it
Right.
is just that is the fuel that puts that in the tank. And also seeing staff, that might start out at a, hourly, housekeeping position, and now are general managers. I mean,
Mhm.
3 years later, that feels really good to me. Bartender start, now is operations, and all working on technology. No, it just those things, and I have to keep their jobs going. I have to keep this open, no matter what.
Right, right. There is no plan B on this one. We're going to make it work, right?
But we have to find a way.
Yeah,
I was thinking, I saw that, but it's tactical, it's strategic, it's trying to keep the fear at bay so you can
right.
think straight.
Yeah.
Because you see three
Yes.
people. There was no one in the pool at the Highlander last night. There were two hotel rooms occupied.
Wow. Wow.
And to keep that fear away is really hard. Especially, it's fatiguing for this kind of duration.
Right.
But then you go on and you see a guest who left a review, and they're like, "Boy, I'm thinking a chain hotel has never gotten a review like that."
Right.
That's important.
Hmm.
And there's not very many places where you can make a living wage at a hospitality, and those things are important to me too. I hope that I can figure out a way to get all the team health insurance at some point. I hope, so those
Right.
things, but the team and the guest, that
Yes.
is what puts gas in the tank.
It is. You're right. I agree. Angela, don't go away. Our guest today with Business Basics is Angela, the new owner who renovated the Highlander Hotel in Iowa City, Iowa. It's a beautiful place. If you've not had a chance to check them out yet, either in person or online, do so. And COVID will go away. We will find a vaccine. We will be back, and it's going to be like the Roaring '20s all over again, but 100 years later. And it's going to be a feel good for everybody. And when we're starting to feel good, let's all feel good together at the Highlander. Angela, thank you so, so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.